The Atlanta Hawks have had, in my opinion, the most underrated offseason in the NBA. The big move is at the 5. With Clint Capella going back to Houston, ATL traded for Kristaps Porzingis, a legit stretch 5 who, although is made of glass, drastically heightens the ceiling for the team. They added to this with Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard to finally have a bit more depth in the backcourt. Dyson Daniels had a DPOY-worthy season last year at the 2, and Ricochet looks like the real deal. I do have a couple of doubts with what the offense will look like with Young on the bench, and it remains to be seen whether we will actually see KP for more than 50 games. With Jalen Johnson back in the rotation this year after the long-term injury, I think Trey & Co could surprise more than a few this season. With my glorious King Jason Tatum going down with an Achilles injury during the playoffs, the Boston Celtics, for the first time in a few years, enter the season without being the favourites to come out of the East. It seems like the front office agree after shedding both Drew Holiday's and Porzingis' contracts to avoid that nasty second apron. With that, they now have an offense led entirely by Jaylen Brown, although I do like the acquisition of Anthony Simmons. In reality, Derek White and Peyton Pritchard should still do what they've been doing. And with the Eastern Conference still not having the strength of the West, there is always the possibility that Boston will be close to the top come April. Although, I expect it's more than likely we'll see them fighting with another few teams in the play-in. With MPJ on a personal mission to prove you can develop CTE with no contact, the Brooklyn Nets seem shaped for another season of mediocrity. Yegor Demin looks to be running point, and after teaching us how to pronounce his name, it remains to be seen if the 6'9", non-Mormon, Russian, BYU one and done can make it work in the NBA. The Nets did make a couple of moves in the offseason. Daron Sharp and Cam Thomas got new deals, and the acquisitions of Kobe Buffkin, Haywood Highsmith, and the once untradeable Terrence Mann mean that the Nets would make a little more noise. The problem is, I expect a lot of the other teams to be a lot louder. The Charlotte Hornets seem to be in the exact same position every year I do these previews, and once again their success seems to depend entirely on LaMelo, who allegedly wants to be referred to as 6'7"? Funny, since he's only managed to play that many games once in his 5 years in the league, and I like LaMelo. There were a couple of moves that are worth mentioning, but LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges isn't really the type of big three I expect to see top in the East anytime soon. Colin Sexton came in from Utah, a move I'm sure he'll be the most grateful for, not just for NBA reasons. They also picked up Kyle Kuzma's favourite player Spencer Dinwiddie, along with Pat Connaughton from the Bucks. They did, however, waive Okogie, Nick Smith Jr., and let go of Steph's little brother, and Mark Williams. So, expect the Hornets to be anywhere below the top 7 in the East. Lower if and when 6'7" gets injured. There's not too much noise in the 3-1-2. Unfortunately for Kenny Beecham, the GOAT, the Chicago Bulls seem set on being not good enough but also not bad enough. Kobe White is a serious player, and Josh Giddey was averaging a near 20-point triple-double at the back end of last season. Bazelis showed a couple of flashes, and picking up Okoro rounds out a pretty standard 5-man rotation to say the least. Trey Jones got an extension after a pretty solid 24-25 campaign, along with Giddey getting a 4-year $100 million deal. The bench also does look like there's some potential. Jones is joined by Huerta, Dosunmu, Pat, and Zach Collins, with Jalen Smith, Javon Carter, and Dalen Terry still at the end of the bench. They have the makings of a solid team, but I just feel like there's something missing. But maybe they prove me wrong. Probably one of the most fun teams to try and predict this season. The Cleveland Cavaliers will no doubt be the favourites in the East for the majority, potentially by a wide margin. They'll be hoping the same recipe can produce a different dish this season, with Garland and Mitchell being more than likely the most offensively dynamic backcourt in the conference. Hunter is an elite 3-and-D wing, and the DPOY Mobley is joined by fashion icon Jarrett Allen in the frontcourt. I think there'll be disappointment at last year's playoffs. They've had this core for a couple of years now, and with the East being in the state it's in, you have to wonder if this could finally be their year. Lonzo, if he's able to really suit up, will be a huge backcourt addition. The depth off the bench is a bit on the weaker side, especially with Strus being a bit far from contributing to the offense. But the Cavs should be the number one favorites to win the conference and definitely to represent the East come the finals. The Detroit Pistons are a team that many may have risked overlooking over the course of last couple seasons. Gone are the days of historic loss streaks and opting to play Killian Hayes. Now, Cade and them have a real shot at being actual contenders in the East. I think they still have a ways to go, but they made some smart moves over the course of the offseason. Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson should add some legitimate scoring off the bench, and with Jaden Ivey coming back from his injury, and Orsar Thompson continuing to develop as an elite defensive player, the Pistons have a relatively well-rounded roster. I think they're fragile to injuries, but so are a lot of the teams. This could be the year that they really stamp their mark on the East. With Tyrese out for the season, the Indiana Pacers, quite like the Celtics, will most likely have a somewhat down year. Their run of late-game winners took them all the way to the finals, and in Game 7, even without Himmelburton, they still kept OKC on their toes. Losing Miles Turner, however, will have a real impact on the strength of their frontcourt. They've added Isaiah Jackson, James Wiseman, and Jay Huff, but all three names don't really jump off the page. It will be interesting to see Nembhard leading the offense. He looked like a serious option at times during last season. Mathurin, Nesmith, and Siakam should all contribute too, and in a once again slightly weakened Eastern Conference, the Pacers aren't completely out of the running just yet. The Miami Heat made a couple of interesting moves this offseason, signing Davion Mitchell to a 2-year deal and acquiring Norman Powell from Miami. Precious Achiuwa joins Bam and Khalil Ware to create some real frontcourt options, but the backcourt duo of Off-Night and Powell may leave more to be desired. Tyler Hero looks to be back within a few months, probably around Christmas, which will be a huge boost to what seems to be one of the weaker guard rotations in the league. Jovic and Jaquez seem to be solid NBA options, and if Wiggins can ever reincarnate his 2022 self, they do have something there. I can see the Heat most likely making the play-in, but getting past the first round might be a step too far for Miami. The Milwaukee Bucks got busy this offseason, and with Giannis consistently saying he's unsure of what's to come in the future, you can see why. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Damian Lillard's time in Milwaukee has come to an end. His Achilles injury is a bitter ending to what will have been a sour time in the eyes of many. With the Bucks choosing to waive and stretch his contract, the front office decided that now is the time to do all they can to keep the Greek freak happy. Gary Harris and Cole Anthony bring their light-skinned talents to the franchise, with KPJ most likely being the first choice at the 1. Miles Turner should prove to be a good replacement for Brook Lopez, and Taurean Prince and Jericho Sims are okay additions. It still feels like no matter how talented Giannis is himself, he's still missing some help from his supporting cast. The word rest is no longer a slur, with Tom Thibodeau finally being fired by the New York Knicks. Mike Brown will be looking to pick up the reins with a real chance of challenging or even winning the conference. Jordan Clarkson will likely be a helpful addition off the bench, and with Brogdon, McBride and Josh Hart, they look to have a little bit of versatility in their ranks too. Cat and Mitchell Robinson will have to find consistency on both sides of the floor, and Brunson Ball will need an evolution. But if we can get a couple more OG Sonny Lee games, and Mitch can stay on the floor, I might even go as far to say that I have the Knicks above the Cavs, at least for parts of this season. Orlando Magic have serious credentials this season. Desmond Bane comes in for KCP, a move which finally gives Banchero some elite perimeter scoring. The Magic last year knew how to get at you, and even without Cole Anthony in the 1, the Magic picked up Tyus Jones to maintain their monopoly on light-skinned point guards. Wagner and Banchero have their best chance to truly emerge as one of the best 1-2 punch duos in the league, and I expect them to take the opportunity with both hands. Wendell Carter, Goga, and Moritz Wagner is a good combination of bigs to be able to call upon, and if Jonathan Isaac wants to be on the court, the defensive upside is even higher. I expect the Magic to have strong moments, in a year they're many people's pick as a dark horse in the conference. The Philadelphia 76ers are a team in two timelines. On the one hand, Tyrese Maxey averaged 26 and 6 last season, proving himself as a legit potential first option. Quentin Grimes also had another solid season, and with VJ Edgecombe coming in to most likely start at the 3, and with Jared McCain looking like another great prospect in the backcourt, the future does, in some regards, look bright. Emphasis on some, because with Podcast P and Mberga still eating up the minutes, it seems the inevitable rebuild will be put on hold until the OGs leave the franchise. Kyle Lowry and Eric Gordon are also at the unction, and to me, the 76ers may even miss out on the play-in. They seem like they could be on the weaker side of the conference, especially if Paul George and Embiid want to remain injured. The Toronto Raptors are a team in transition, but they still have some good pieces at present. With Scotty Barnes leading the charge, the supporting cast of Quickly, Barrett and Ingram really does sound like it has the potential to push for the playoffs. Jakob Poeltl got a 4-year extension in the offseason, and although Chris Boucher departed to Boston, the 5 does look kind of weak if Jakob isn't playing. Agbaji and Grady should be good bench options, but they do lack a certain amount of firepower to do anything more than make a play-in push. At least the way I see it. The Washington Wizards look set for once again another year of being below average. The perpetually rebuilding roster let go of both Jordan Poole and Malcolm Brogdon, opting for CJ McCollum to partner Carrington in the backcourt. They also acquired Cam Whitmore from Houston, a player who should have something to prove after his time with the Rockets. In terms of their season outlook, it seems inevitable for Washington to be near the bottom of the pack in the East. Coulibaly and Sarr should get more reps, and washed Chris Middleton is at least a good veteran for the young guys on the team. But again, Wizards fans, barring some magic, will have another year of looking at next year's draft board. And that, my friends, is the Eastern Conference. Here are the standings and how I think the league is going to look at the end of the season. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. I will try and get the West video out as soon as I can, because last year I think I only did the East and called it a day, man. So you know how it is. But yeah, much love, guys. See you soon. Peace.